Well, it's my pleasure to introduce this, the second in our series of interviews with people involved in Kendal's Climate Change Citizens Jury. My name's John Owen and I'm a Kendal Town Councillor and a member of the jury's commissioning group. In a minute, you're going to be hearing from Mark Cropper, who's on the jury's oversight panel. Mark's chairman of papermaker and fibre specialist James Cropper plc, one of Kendal's large employers, and he's also chair of Kendal Futures, the local private public sector regeneration partnership. Interviewing Mark is another member of the oversight panel, Jemima Longcake. Jemima is a creator, performer and human rights activist. She's co-founder of the community activist group Castle and has shared her work through the Edinburgh Fringe, the Lowry Salford and TEDx. So with that, it's over to you, Jemima.
Thank you, John. And thank you, Mark, for being here this evening and letting me ask you just a handful of questions. I just have 3 questions for you, so if you're happy, we'll just move straight into them.
Yes, of course, yeah. Brilliant.
Okay, so the first question is, why are you supportive of the Citizens Jury?
I'm supportive. Yeah, of course. It's not a short answer, but I think there are several short answers to that. One is, I still think, despite awareness changing massively in 2019, in particular, with Extinction Rebellion and lots of other things that were only making awareness just greater and greater, I would still say that real full-scale awareness of the seriousness of climate change, we still got a long way to go. It isn't something that people really feel is necessarily relevant to their lives, and I think we've got to do a lot more to make people realise that number one, it's a problem, but I think equally importantly that actually a lot of the solutions make all our lives better in other ways as well. So it's a process that I think involves a cross section of people like this is really, really important to effectively stimulate a conversation. And I hope that the jury of 20 will then actually be able to have a lot of conversations, beyond, with their own friends and family. And it's the beginning of a process by which we can actually really think about, recognizing the problem. I think we're at that point now where we need to confront reality. So that's number one. Because if you can't confront reality, you can't expect to be on a pathway to change. And then of course it's supportive and supportive of change, but also of course helping to initiate that as well.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned there that it's supportive of making change, and a big way in which it does that is through the recommendations. Can you explain a little bit about how the recommendations will be used and implemented?
Well, I haven't seen the recommendations. So, I have got no idea what the jury, I'm, very much just on the periphery of this process, providing support and ideas where I can, but it's really obviously down to the jury to do what they can recommend. I think and again, I've had this conversation already with some of the team, like Pete. In my kind of personal and professional capacity, I will do everything I can to try and get recommendations, which, I very much doubt the recommendations going to be saying, it's business as usual, let's not do something. So let's just assume that the jury advocates really thinking about how we change a town like Kendal for the better. So let's just assume that the case. And I think, what I really want to make sure is that with all my personal and professional relationships and contacts is that I help to deliver that message to our community. That's really important. I also think I'm probably in a quite an unusual position in terms of the businesses that I lead myself, whereby actually we are also, interestingly, we are actually part of the problem, in that we have a very high carbon footprint at Kendal. I was working it out. It is 40,000 tons a year of CO2. So if population of Kendal is 29,000, I'm probably wrong on that. That's and it's 10 tons per person. That's 290,000 tons. So James Cropper in Burneside, as a proportion of the whole of Kendal, is a really big number. So I'm not hiding behind that. We've already got a commitment in the company to do something about that. It's a tough gig to do it, but actually I think we can have a outsized kind of contribution to reducing the impact of our communities. So that's a positive. But the other, sorry, that's not positive. That's a negative that we can turn into a positive. But I think the other thing is that I've also independently of the family company had a 20-year career in renewable energy, and have been building hydro schemes for the last 10 years, and more latterly community solar projects. And that's also an expertise that I can help bring to Kendal and other, there might be spin-off groups from this initiative. For instance, if there was a group that wanted to set up a community energy business, then we've got know-how here. We could help them with that. I'd also be a really strong advocate of our council being more proactive, perhaps in the sort of supply and management of greener electricity and heating solutions. If that was a possibility, there's certainly a lot of thinking out there that localizing some of this at a municipal level is something that could be really good, as well as communal. And I think, just coming back to James Cropper, we also, of course, have got a lot of products that are already, quite ahead of the curve in terms of, decarbonisation. So this is a example of, and I'm not here to advertise James Cropper, but there's things that there's a lot of things we know around and we're contributing to. And we're involved, for instance, in the hydrogen and fuel cell sector, which could be a big part of the transition to a balanced renewable energy economy. And so there's a lot of ideas that might be relevant there. Sorry, that's a bit of a long question, bit of a long answer. Sorry.
No, it's nice to hear your perspective. You basically touched on the third question actually there. Because what I was going to ask is that, as a notable person in local business, what would you like to see local businesses doing in response to the jury, or how do you think they can get involved with it, both in the process currently and also the outcomes?
Well, I just kind of always want to make my answer to that slightly, almost like broadening out how I believe local businesses should almost engage with their communities on more than just this topic. Because in a way, there was a time when sort of local businesses, local employers were much more closely involved in the town. Going back in history, the aldermen of Kendal were generally the local business leaders. And that's changed, and I think the ownership of businesses, not ours, but ownership of a lot of businesses can be further afield. Not all by any means, but also I think there's been a sense. I don't know how long this has been going on for, but it must be a generation or two, that the role of a business owner is to look after his business and almost not play a part in the life of the town. That's somebody else's responsibility. And yes, it is. I mean, the whole world of you know, the public sector has of course has been professionalized and employs a lot more people. But actually, I think persuading our business leaders to really care about our town, and as a subset of that, really care about carbon reduction in our town, that is a really important message to get out there. They need to start caring again, and actually it will make their businesses as well as their communities more sustainable. That's the ultimate outcome from this. We're all going to be in a better position. You know, if we do all the right things as a business in Burneside, we will still be here. If we don't, I don't think we'll be here in the future.
Right. Thank you. That's all for the questions that I had for you, and you finished just on time.
I saw the clock counting down.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for answering those questions. It was really interesting to hear your perspective, and I'm sure it'll be a really useful resource.